Listen, guys, I have never been a Harry Potter fan, and in all likelihood I never will be. I've never read these books, and I really don't understand the mass appeal of this story. That being said, I have seen every film in this series with the exception of the first. Some of you are probably going, well, what the hell, why would you do that? The reason for that is because I was hired back at my movie theater just before the second film was released. So I've been able to see every one of these films, with the exception of the first one. So I understand the story in this series. But that's not to say that I enjoy it. I don't enjoy this story much, but I do think some of these films have been pretty good. So when I went into this film, I went in with an unbiased mind, and I said I'm just going to try to enjoy this movie. The plot of this film picks up a couple of months after the previous film, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Harry is trying to deal with the problems that obviously occurred in the previous film, and he's starting his 6th year at Hogwarts. Shortly after his classes start at Hogwarts, he's approached by Dumbledore, who is of course the head wizard at Hogwarts, and Dumbledore tells Harry that he has a special favor to ask of him. There is a recent addition to the faculty at Hogwarts, a professor who teaches potions by the name of Slughorn. Turns out that this professor, many years ago, spoke to Tom Riddle, who eventually turned into Voldemort, the main villain in this series. Dumbledore wants Harry to try to convince this new professor to divulge information on Tom Riddle, to see if they can open up the mystery of how Voldemort came to power. So in a sense, that is the main plot to this film. There are some smaller stories that are going on in this film, but I'll get to them in a moment. So let me start off with something good. I was really impressed by the cinematography and acting in this film. That's one thing I can say about the Harry Potter series. I have never been unimpressed by the cinematography in these films. They have almost always been beautiful and amazing. Also, the cast in this film, not just the main characters of Harry, Hermione, and Ron, every side character also does a great job, and I was really impressed by that. However, the main downfall of this film really is its story. And I hate saying that, because typically when you have a good cast, they can turn a mediocre story into a great one. But sadly, this story is just lacking, because it doesn't know where it wants to go. There are so many plot lines that have to play out in this film that it's sometimes hard to keep track of which one you should follow. You have the main story with Harry and Dumbledore, then you have a side story with Malfoy, then you have a side story with Hermione and Ron, then you have a side story with Ron and his recent girlfriend, then you have a side story with Harry and Hermione, and it just keeps going back and forth, and you don't know which one you should be focusing on half the time. And in the end, I think the biggest drawback of this film is that it really is a setup film. In its purest form, this film is just an entire setup for the next 2 films in this series, for the big climax that's going to occur in those next 2 movies. A lot of movies that are setup films like this tend to lack in the plot and story department. Now, I don't think that this film being a setup movie necessarily excuses it from being a bad story. Previous setup films have run quite well. For example, Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, or The Empire Strikes Back. Films like that, which are meant to set up the big climax in the next film, but still tell a great story. Unfortunately, this film doesn't do that. Now, some of you may be thinking in your minds, well, what stories have you enjoyed? To be perfectly honest, there's only been one film in this series that I actually really liked, and it was the 3rd one in this series, The Prisoner of Azkaban. The reason I say that story is the best in this series is because anyone, even if you are a Harry Potter fan or not, could have walked into that film and enjoyed it. That film stood out by itself because you didn't have to see the 2 precursing films in order to understand it. If you walked into that movie and just sat down, had no idea what Harry Potter was, you still could have understood that film. And I really appreciated that. And it was for that reason that I enjoyed that movie. So with this film, if you have not read any Harry Potter books or seen any Harry Potter movies going into this, you are not going to understand a single thing that is going on. Now, hopefully by this point, anyone going into this film has seen the previous films or read the books, so that shouldn't be a problem. However, it is because of that, because we have so much going on, that it almost overwhelms the viewer. So while the hardcore Harry fans may enjoy this, a general fan like myself, or just a general moviegoer, is going to be completely overwhelmed with so much stuff that's going on in this story. So, final rating. Again, I want to commend the cinematographer in this film, and I want to commend the cast, because all did a very good job. However, I didn't find the story that compelling, and it all just felt like a big setup for the next two films. So I'm going to give this movie 2.5 stars. If you are a Harry Potter fan, it's pretty much guaranteed you're going to enjoy this movie, and that's fine. I have nothing wrong with that. However, if you're not really into this series, if you have seen previous films but you're just kind of about them, this might be one you might want to wait until it comes out on DVD. But you still might enjoy it when you watch it then. One last thing before I leave you all. I know that the characters in the Harry Potter universe are starting to grow up and they're starting to get to the age where they're becoming more and more interested in the opposite sex, but tone it down a bit, guys. And I'm sorry, but these characters are all over each other for the middle hour of this film. I'm expecting that little troll guy, whatever his name was, Dobby, I think it was. I'm expecting him to walk around the corner. Oh, something horny this way comes. You know, like, really? Calm down, kids. So, take care.